This was the last slide which we discussed yesterday. What problems and difficulties an entrepreneur faces whenever he is beginning his venture for the first time. Since he is new to the business, he might not have the experienced pool of people, pool of resources. So the marketing team, the quality wise, the products are not up to the mark, or since he is using the we can say that the obsolete technology or the outdated version of the product sometimes, and the production, this was the problem which we studied because of lack of funds or insufficient funds available. He might not be uh, uh, having the updated versions of the products or the technology. So these are some of the issues, the difficulties, the problems which an entrepreneur may face. Being a new firm, he may not be having the experienced people. He cannot uh, recruit the experienced ones because the people may feel that being a startup or being a new venture, I might not be getting what salary I'm getting right now, and maybe career progress wise also it would be slower compared to the one where the systems and procedures are already set. So these are some of the difficulties an entrepreneur may face. Moving on further, the important and interesting topic as well from this unit, mobility of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial change is what we are going to study today. Now, what do we mean by mobility? Mobility meaning movement. Now, movement of entrepreneurs. Now, how this movement is happening? Entrepreneurial mobility means movement of entrepreneurs from one location to another, and similarly from one occupation to another, which affect the pace and pattern of entrepreneurship development. So movement is happening at two places. First movement is from one location to another. So if I change my office, if I change the location, then this can also be called as an entrepreneurial movement because I am changing my location here. Similarly, from one occupation to another, if the movement takes place, then also it is called as an entrepreneurial mobility. I was a small vegetable vendor who was working from home. I was into home delivery of the vegetables. Now I have my own shop. I have leased it out and now I operate from that shop. I no more, or to lesser extent now I deal with a free home delivery system. Now I have a dedicated shop. So again, it's a movement. So earlier, the location was my home now. So I was the one who was involved in home delivery. Now customers have to come and pick the vegetables from my place. Occupation, as I said, I was a small vegetable vendor. Now I have started a small shop where I sell everyday consumables like bread, butter, like that. So this is also mobility, entrepreneurial mobility, because I have shifted my occupation. Earlier I was so and so, and now I am so and so. Now this is definitely is going to affect the pattern of development as well as the pace. Pace as in the rate. So rate of entrepreneurship development. So this is called as mobility, entrepreneurial mobility. Now then what do we mean by occupational mobility? Meaning movement or changes in occupation is what exactly we saw. So either now we can say expansion or diversification. These terms can also be related to occupational mobility. Now Tata is into various ventures. Tata Steel, Tata Consultancy, then Tata AIG Insurance. So they have diversified their business risk into many such businesses. So this can be the example of occupational mobility. When the group Tata as a group started for the first time, started such ventures for the first time, then this could have been called as occupational mobility. Let's see the definition. Entrepreneurial mobility is defined as the movement of entrepreneur from one context to another. Now, what do we mean by context here? Context meaning reference. So, the movement of entrepreneur from anything to anything, then this is called as entrepreneurial mobility. Now, if he becomes a salaried person, then it would not be termed as entrepreneurial mobility because he is completely changing the definition of entrepreneurship. Are you getting it? So, I was earlier working for myself, now I work for somebody else. So when I start working for somebody else, I may not be termed as a entrepreneur. Then I would be a employee. So in entrepreneurial mobility, we are definitely targeting the entrepreneurial venture, but then this there is some kind of movement which is taking place from one context to another context. Now this movement from one to another can happen, can take place in four aspects. What those four aspects are: temporal, institutional, social, and spatial. Temporal, life cycle of the enterprise. Enterprise has life cycle. Each and every enterprise passes through the, whenever you are dealing either with product or service, you are following a path, and that is called as life cycle. It has got four uh, uh, terminology, or it has got four phases: introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So whenever you pass from one phase to another, even that is called as temporal movement. So entrepreneurial temporal movement. Now, why this is coming under kind of entrepreneurial movement? Because you are changing the form of your organization, meaning you are progressing. So when you started your venture, you had a very little response because you were new. Slowly and steadily, you put your money into advertising, you put your money into making a better product, more and more efficient product. This way you are actually improving your product offering. You are trying to reach maximum number of customers, so you are distributing your product to the every nook and corner of this of the city, something like that. So you are actually putting in efforts, and because of these efforts, slowly and steadily, people have started accepting your product. Meaning now, from introduction stage, you are now into growth stage. Are you understanding what we are discussing? The PLC, product life cycle, we are discussing. I hope you can correlate with me. Fine. So we are passing from introduction phase to um, growth phase. So there is a shift. So this kind of movement of your organization from introduction phase to growth phase is called as temporal movement, life cycle, change in the life cycle of the enterprise. Then comes institutional movement, because of some uh, change of government policies, legal systems, norms, and values. Now, this institutional movement is currently we are expecting due to COVID restrictions. The state government has declared some shops, the non-essential shops, closed down for some time. Now, this was the case earlier as well. The the garment traders and all, those come under non-essential category of the goods. So the way these people look at it, and if they come up with some innovative ways. Now sometimes we see that I observed it when I was just passing from one area. There was there was a person who in his vehicle, I guess it was I don't recollect the name, not Innova, but Ertiga. Yes, it was Ertiga, and he was displaying some of his products. And those products were like small packet sachets of masalas and such takeaway things. So now that shop was not that shop was closed because of the COVID restrictions, the person started this form of catering to the customers. Now the reason behind it was till how many days he will close his shop down for. So under uncertainty, such things happen due to government policies, due to legal systems, changing norms and changing values. Now, many people have started going online. If you have observed the advertisements of Pantaloon and such Big Bazaar or West Sides, so they all are promoting. Earlier also they were available on this online platform. Brick and mortar say they were only available on this mortar platform. But now they are heavily promoting that just visit our website and we'll take care of all your shopping needs like that. So this kind of movement is called as institutional movement. So temporal, institutional. Third kind of movement is called as social. Social movement like social networks. Many businesses nowadays we see that they are uh, building the network of the people, network of people of their community, or let's say the school which they belong to, or the college, or the the ex-employees, they come together, they form the network, and this can be the platform used for entrepreneurship. And then geographical space. So you are opening the newer branches of your venture, then this is called as spatial movement, spatial entrepreneurial movement. So we are studying this mobility of entrepreneurs. So the context, therefore, an element that indicates areas where entrepreneurial mobility can take place. So that is what we will see. Key, it is the reference. Now when we say that there is a movement of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial mobility is taking place, so where it is taking place, how can you say that there is an entrepreneurial mobility which is taking place? Shift from one phase to another is called as mobility. So how do we define it? We define it with the help of these four parameters, these four contexts. What those parameters are? Temporal, institutional, social, and spatial. Entrepreneurial mobility also includes the crossing of industrial or functional boundaries. So you are either crossing the industrial or the functional boundaries of enterprise. Now, industrial boundaries would be if I have a unit in let's say Navi Mumbai mein Taloja MIDC, and now second unit I start in Chakan MIDC, like that. So this could be the example of crossing the industrial boundaries. Functional boundaries. Earlier I was uh, basically into product manufacturing. I was outsourcing marketing and supply chain. But since now I am growing my business and now the production and all everything is settled, I think of starting my own distribution network. So I am actually expanding the functional boundaries. Example which is given: entrepreneurs who cross functional boundaries move their startup more often into new product areas. So I start my entrepreneurial venture into newer product lines, or I specialize into the areas where I was not dealing earlier. So manufacturing, production, HR, marketing, supply chain, distribution, these are all the functional areas of an enterprise. All right. Let us now refer the write-up which we studied, which I gave you yesterday. Can you see the PDF?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll just, as I said, the first 4 pages are important
No,
from
no,
our.
PDF, no. PPT. PDF
Oh,
is not visible. Sorry.
okay, fine, fine.
Ma'am.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Is it now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Uh, I hope it would be now.
Yes, ma'am. Now it is.
So now you can only see the PDF, right?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So entrepreneurial mobility. Um, it includes the crossing of industrial or functional boundaries. Yes, we just now discussed. We'll straight away now go to this diagram. Dimensions of entrepreneurial mobility. Now, this diagram explains the various aspects of mobility of entrepreneurship. All right. Now, these dimensions can be distinguished into using the two criteria. So, we have to explain this mobility. We are explaining this mobility using the two criteria, and those criteria are organizational mobility and geographic mobility. So, there is mobility which is taking place at organization level. Maybe you are changing the organization, you are changing the form of the organization, you are changing the structure of the organization. Second would be geographic mobility. You are shifting from one location to another, from one form to uh, one geographic form to another one, taking into account their level, how the mobility is high and low. So these are the four parameters: organizational mobility and geographic mobility, taking into consideration their level, high level or low level. So this is what is the diagram now, dimensions of mobility. Now, when we have low mobility, geographical mobility and organizational mobility, the form is called as creation of new firm in local context. The first area shows the situation in which geographical mobility and organizational mobility are low. Both the involvement is low. Geographical mobility भी low है and the organizational mobility is also low. This applies to the entrepreneurs perceived in traditional way as founders and owners. So these are not the we can say that the first generation entrepreneurs. These are the either they are just sitting on that chair. So these are the founder members. The organization is already there, but now I am joining there as a founder or as an owner. So here I'm just, as I said, I'm just joining or I'm just sitting on that chair. So right now the condition is that whatever is going on, like the structure is already being set up, so mobility is less. And since the structure is set up, organizational mobility is also less. They are characterized by low level in these two dimensions because it results from the previous experience, the nature of sequence of prior failures and observations of previous generation, hmm, which causes aversion to learning and taking up new challenges. As I said, they are just now sitting on that chair. So that chair earlier belonged to someone. So because of the earlier consequences, this involvement level is less here. It is the result of seeing uh, uh, okay, so because of these low levels, what is happening? Learning and taking up new challenges, these situations or these, we can say that qualities are little bit lacking here in such organizations where the both at both the levels, if the involvement is less, the entrepreneur is less inclined towards learning new things and taking up the challenges. You remember one of the entrepreneur's quality, the type we saw was that he was very calculated risk taker, and he was very adamant in taking up the new challenges. So those entrepreneurs fit into this criteria. This is the result of seeing failure in the external environment and focusing on cognitive factors, heuristics, and information processing. Now, here, what is happening? I'm just observing what is happening in the external environment, and it is my own learning out of what I observe outside. So, I'm just taking the information from outside, and based on my capacity, my brain capacity, and my inborn skills, I'm processing the information. Now, here in this category, only a few entrepreneurs decide to change the geographic location of the next venture. These are people who, after initial aversion to change, finally decide to convert their venture. So, definitely, as in to some extent, definitely these people change. Very few of them, they really change. And how they change? They decide to convert uh, their venture, and little bit hesitation which they have earlier towards change, they decide that it is very necessary to change, and that is what mobility refers to. That change is nothing but mobility. When I believe that if I don't change now, if I don't change the way I work or the setup of my organization, I will not be into the business. And this feeling is nothing but the entrepreneurial mobility. And what it results into, I may change, little the setup of the organization, the way I offer the product, the way I communicate, the way I market. So some kind of change is observed, and that is called as entrepreneurial mobility. Second area assumes low geographic mobility and high organizational mobility. We are talking about this area. Low geographical mobility, but high organizational mobility. What are the characteristics of this particular area? This dimension can be described using two situations. Now, ऐसे situations में we have two angles, or we have two examples to give under this situation. In this quadrant, there are people who leave the current employer to set up their own company on the basis of MBOs, management buyouts, management by objectives. We उसको बोलते हैं. Here, ये quadrant में move out of established organization. In this quadrant, there are people who leave the current employer to set up their own company on the basis of management buyouts. Now, Infosys can be the example. The person was earlier working, Narayan Murthy, he was earlier working with Tatas, and then friends together, and actually Sudha Murthy was working with Tatas. They were working with Patni Computers, and they had they as in Infosys, Narayan Murthy along with few of his friends, they all quit the organization and they started their own venture, Infosys. So this is one such example where the people are leaving their employer to set up their own company on the basis of management buyouts. Separate department or subsidiary of an enterprise is transformed into an independent enterprise. Now, sometimes it happens that they are working for the organization but not as per the rules and regulations of the organization. जिसको हम क्या बोलते हैं? Intrapreneur, if you remember. So there is a separate department or subsidiary of an enterprise is transformed into an independent enterprise. People making such ventures see themselves as intrapreneurs, and now we term them as entrepreneurs. And if they are still working for that organization, so within that organization limits, if they are coming up with such a venture where they are converting and starting a completely different or another set of enterprise, then we call them as intrapreneurs. So this is first, that they leave the organization and they leave the current employer to set up their own company, or they form a separate department or subsidiary of an enterprise and they convert it into an independent enterprise. So this is one situation. Second situation that takes place in this dimension is the university spin-off. They involve creation of new venture using the knowledge of academic teachers. जैसे हमने EDP देखा था, entrepreneurship development programs. So if an institute runs EDP for their students, and what happens, I as a EDP coordinator, I see that while giving lectures to the students, I observe that these few students have got this ability. I tell them to enroll. I convince them to enroll for the program because they themselves are not aware about their capabilities, entrepreneurial capabilities. So I counsel them, I tell them to enroll. These 4 students, they enroll for the program, they undergo training for let's say 3 to 4 months. After 3 to 4 months, whatever their whatever business ideas they had in their mind, 2 out of them are successful immediately after 3 months or 6 months EDP completion. They begin towards the journey. So this is the second situation which takes place in this dimension, and this is called as university spin-off, which involves the creation of new venture using the knowledge of an academic teachers. So with the help of the coordinators or academic teachers, academic coordinators, the new venture is created. Little is known about emerging cognitive challenges in the creation and development of effective university spin-offs, which is why there is need to analyze the abilities and competencies required of academic entrepreneurs. Right? Then this third area, this individual mobility area, which has high geographical mobility with less low organizational mobility. It describes a situation in which geographic mobility is high and organizational mobility is low. It concerns immigrant entrepreneurs returning to their own country and ethnic entrepreneurs. So, this situation talks about the entrepreneurs who were successful outside their home country. Over a period of time, they assume or they realize that it's better that we should serve our country's people or our country, so they return to their own country and the ethnic entrepreneurs. So these are the people who are returning their home country to start a specific venture. Even this is the situation, many a times we see that the person was doing very good overseas, but over a period of time he assumes that even situations are or the opportunities are very good in their home country and they come back. If you recollect, we discussed the examples of the entrepreneurs from Bangladesh. Sunday, Indian Express Sunday, I guess it was 27th March or some edition, I don't recall. So this person, uh, MIT University passed out. He worked in the in US for many such these e-wallet providers, and he thought that why not start something like this in my home country. So he returned to Bangladesh and he started his mobile payment app called as Bcash, BKSH. So such entrepreneurs represent or they are categorized under this category. So they return to their home country and they start a specific venture. Uh, Using for this purpose the knowledge possessed, it can become the basis for formulating strategic entrepreneurship. This dimension is therefore focused on individual entrepreneurship, its motives and decisions. Although there are many studies on entrepreneurs returning to country and their determinants, the difference between entrepreneurial behavior of people remaining abroad and those who have decided to return and use their resources are still not resolved. So we have examples and we have explanation, but still there are differences between the behavior of these two people who, who went abroad to study, who started their ventures there, and who are now settled overseas only, against the one who went abroad for studies, took some experience, came to their home country and started their entrepreneurial venture. So this behavior is yet to be studied. But then for us, what is important is such category of mobility, entrepreneurial mobility. So they are actually shifting their base from one country to the home country, and in this way they are called as uh, entrepreneurial mobility, or this behavior is called as entrepreneurial mobility. The last area indicates high geographic mobility and high organizational mobility. In the traditional sense, this area would refer to the organizations that are not afraid of moving the company to another region or country. So this represents what? The, as I said, expansion. And how we are expanding here? We are expanding geographically. Example would be Mahindra. Now, Mahindra in collaboration with uh, what was that company? The automobile venture I'm talking about. So they started manufacturing those model. I see Mahindra or Tata. They went abroad and they started manufacturing Jaguar. Yes, so Jaguar was the one which they acquired, Mahindra acquired, and with the collaboration of that, with the collaboration of this company, they started manufacturing such cars. And if you see, they copied the prototype also, and did little modifications, and in this way they started operating in our country. So this was the case earlier, that you are expanding geographically, and that indicates the fourth quadrant. Nowadays, this quadrant refers to the transnational entrepreneurs who can establish new locations of enterprises abroad. So we have a term now. क्या बोलते हैं उसको? We call them as transnational entrepreneurs. Now we have multinationals and we have transnationals. So these are transnational entrepreneurs who are establishing new locations of enterprises abroad. So they create ventures using their social capital and networking. And so basically these entrepreneurs, they are not afraid of working overseas. For them, it's a new challenge. So based on their social networking and based on their abilities, they start their new ventures abroad. So rather than beginning something here, beginning something within their known geography, they expand the horizon and they go abroad and start their ventures. So these are called as transnational entrepreneurs. Such entrepreneurs are able to take advantage of the opportunity and competitive international forces to find themselves in the global space. So this is about the entrepreneurial mobility. So if I have to summarize what it is basically shifting or changing your movement, or changing your position, or changing yourself. Now this change can, as I said, happen or take place in four ways. There is temporal, there is institutional, there is spatial, and there is one that is called as social. So maybe sometimes you are changing the, or you are entering the next step of life cycle. From growth you are heading towards maturity, or let's say from maturity towards decline you are heading. So how your strategies are, how your working is, how you respond to this change explains the mobility, explains entrepreneurial mobility. Sometimes due to change in social norms, you have to change your uh, uh, you have to make changes in your organization. For example, if a bill is passed, suppose just imaginary situation, a bill is passed saying that at least you have to employ 33% women employees. Now this is a change in government policy. So now I have to see to it that if I have 10 10 employees required, now I have to see to it that out of 10, at least 3 to 4 are women employees. So like that. So again, it's a movement you are changing because of change in policy, because of change in social norms. Sometimes the space is uh, inadequate. Now you have to expand. So expand as in you have to opt for a bigger space. So what do? I try to find places, but I find that the rental cost and other expenses which I have to put in is actually, because of this calculation, my entire budget is collapsing. So what do? I try to set up the factory, or I try to set up this factory into some other location, into some completely new location. Maybe that could be at a far away, located from the district place or something. So this is called as spatial movement, geographical movement. So we have seen four such movements of entrepreneurship. I hope these things are clear. Hmm? Let us move on now to the, is the PPT visible now? Is PPT visible, guys?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Entrepreneurial change. Change meaning, again, mobility and change. So you have to change. That is why you become or you practice entrepreneurial mobility. And entrepreneurial mobility is basically because of entrepreneurial change. So the reason that organizations undergo change is to survive and grow. So the point which we studied earlier, the base for it is simple. I have to survive and I have to grow. Sometimes I have to remain in the business. That is, I have to survive my business. So I have to change. How I change? Four ways are there. Mobility, four ways are there. Sometimes I have to grow. I have to expand. I have to increase uh, my power, we can say. Financial power, or let's say production power, I have to increase. I am capable and I can manage with that. So this is called as growth. So for these two reasons, organizations undergo change. Hence, managing change becomes a priority for all the founders and entrepreneurs. Now, how to manage it, how to manage this change becomes priority. So continuously we have to think as an entrepreneur or as founder member, what change we can have or where I can change, how to bring about that change, and how to sustain with that change. Key to survival is adaptability. Now, I understood the importance of change. Now, how to bring about it? How to bring about change? By adaptability, by adapting or the ability to effectively and efficiently change business models. Now, we are discussing ways to bring that change. Adaptability meaning whatever consequences or whatever situation is there around us, we are adapting ourselves to that change. Uh, Suppose it's in Manali, there is snowfall. So people have adapted to that situation, that so and so happens. So for us, maybe it's a, it's a shivering cold. We are unable to sustain because we have not experienced such weather. But then people who are there, they have adapted themselves, to the kind of weather change which takes place, kind of uh, food and other habits, what they have to change accordingly. So key to survival is adaptability. So you have to sense what is happening around me, and accordingly you need to bring about some kind of change in yourself. That is called as adaptability. Second, ability to effectively and efficiently change business models. So need of hour, the current need of the hour is to be present online, because anyways, everybody is not involved in supply chain. Everybody is not expert in logistics. So many business firms, or bigger giants also, they outsource such things to experts. So my point here to tell you is that that is not something we are discussing right now. What is more important for us is to survive. Now, if I have to close down my shop for, let's say, 20 days or 25 days, what will I do? कहाँ से मैं, मुझे खाना कहाँ से मिलेगा? So important point here is that I have to change my business model. When such situations arise, can I be available online, or can I manage my business through app, or what sort of business model should I adopt so that I can survive in difficult situations? Even you must have read many success stories of farmers from the regions near to Pune, from Nasik and Ahmednagar, where they came together. They formed the Association of Farmers. They came together and they started the home delivery of vegetables and fruits and such perishable items. So once the order is placed, within 24 hours, the order is dispatched like that. So they changed their business model. They changed the way they were working earlier. So this should be the entrepreneur's ability to effectively and efficiently change his business model. Another way to bring on that change is through business processes. Can I change the process? Can I change the way I carry out my business? So change in process would be maybe having more machines, less humans, or better machines, more humans to take care of other things, and more standardization and mechanization. So this is something which we have to think as an entrepreneur. Can we bring about that change by way of changing business processes and technologies also in response to the disruptive innovations and competitive threats in rapidly evolving environment. Now, disruptive innovations meaning hota hai, those innovations are good, but then those innovations are uh, exactly, if I have to use the word, they are killing matlab not literally killing, but बोलते हैं ना सुला देते like that. So they are literally disrupting the things. So these are called as disruptive innovations. So, can we bring about change in response to such disruptive innovations which are taking place? Artificial intelligence के बारे में, it is usually said that it's kind of disruptive innovations because the information is available, and this AI technology or this AI mechanism is such that it is just processing. On WhatsApp also we must have heard the messages on these lines that you just we are nowadays doing everything online. So we are transferring money, we are ordering things, and these Google and the other providers, they exactly know our spending pattern. So these messages I'm talking, so these messages or these service providers are provoking us. Now it is month end, your salary must have been credited. Now you have this offer from Domino's, you have this offer from Myntra, you have so and so offer from so and so service provider. So this is because of this big data analysis and all. So they are processing our information in such a way that nothing is hidden. Everything, though we have passwords and all, but then everything, the service providers have all the details of our spends. So this is the example of disruptive innovation. So can I change? Can I bring about change in this scenario in response to this disruptive innovation? Can I have some other technology to tackle this disruptive innovation? So this can also be an क्या बोल सकते हैं, a parameter for bringing about change. So either either adapting to the situation, or changing our business models, or changing the business processes, or the way the technologies are changing, adapting to that. These are some of the ways we can bring about the change in the entrepreneurial ventures. Though offering unique goods and services, entrepreneurs break away from tradition and reduce dependence on obsolete systems and technologies. This can result in an improved quality of life, improved morale, and greater economic freedom. So, what this point is telling us, if you offer something unique, innovative, or you are offering it not for the first time but in an innovative way, something differently than your competitors, so उसको हम unique बोल सकते हैं. They break away from tradition and reduce dependence on obsolete system. Now, example of this could be ferns and petals. what do? They deliver the bouquets, and now they have started delivering cakes and chocolates and such, those small teddies, such goodies also nowadays. Now, ferns and petals, their core business was basically online delivery of bouquets. It's an innovative way because bouquets were there earlier as well. So those shops were there, Archie's and Hallmark. Okay, outside where usually these people sit, and in flower markets also we have many of these vendors who deal with bouquets. But then it's an innovative way of delivering it online. So this can result, इससे क्या हो रहा है? This can result in an improved quality of life, improved morale, and greater economic freedom. For the service provider, definitely it can improve his quality of life. Now he is present online also, and the margin which he is earning because of his online business is more compared to what he is selling via shop. Again, he is saving on rent and other parameters. And we see these examples are just to make the concept clear. We are not going in real detail of the situation, but just to make the point clear. So there would be some improvement because when he is present online, accordingly he has to offer and he has to do some kind of, जिसको बोलते हैं product augmentation. So small card is to be attached, something so that he can be differentiated from the others. So in this newer form of business, when that flower vendor enters, he sees that there are business opportunities, there are growth opportunities. So he puts in now extra efforts, which actually results in improved morale. And he also enjoys some economic freedom also because he is doing his business as per his own terms and conditions. He is adapting to the newer forms, so somewhere he can enjoy that economic freedom. So what are these drivers of economic change, entrepreneurial change? When this change entrepreneur wants to adopt, what makes him go for this change? Reaction time. Reaction time, the time which you take to react. If you are taking a lot of time to react, then probably you won't change. If I see that because of pandemics, many shops are closed, and my reaction would be, okay, fine, I'll wait for the government officials to come up with some uh, uh, remedy for it, then I'll think of opening. Then you will be simply uh, you know क्या बोल सकते हैं इसको? Just be flown away from the business. You won't be surviving. So how much at how much faster you respond and react to that change? If your reaction time is lesser, survival chances are more. Reaction time is longer, then you may face some difficulties. So this reaction time becomes a driving force for change, entrepreneurial change. Active engagement of key staff in moving out of their comfort zone and taking the brand and the goodwill of the company into new territories. So if you have the staff which is quite active, which is quite motivated and quite enthusiastic. Now, such staff, if they are ready to move out of their comfort zone and they are ready to take the product, the offering, or let's say the brand and goodwill of the company into new territories. So basically, if you have the good support of the staff who are ready to change themselves, if the staff is such, then you can bring about change. Example of this would be introduction of computers into banking. Now, banking system may these computers got introduced in late 90s, we can say. So late 90s, like 95, 97, 98. Now, during that era, the computers slowly and steadily they started entering the banking system, Indian banking system. So what happened? The staff of these banks, usually we see that the average age of these banking staff is, let's say, 40, 45. Now we are talking about average age. So, and the era which we are discussing is 97, 98. So we were just, these cable TVs and uh, such was the era where slowly and steadily things were changing at Indian households. And then these computers were also being introduced. Since they were introduced for the first time, nobody really knew how to operate. And this is the real example which I'm giving. So the staff which was there, as the average age of the staff is, let's say, 45, 40, 45, 50. Those people were really very, they were not cooperative. They were very adamant in accepting that change. For them, it was just another machine which was just there to create havoc, because then they had to undergo training. Uh, they had to learn new thing. So that learning new thing was probably they had to sit for extra hours, or maybe they had to sacrifice their the holiday or something, though it was for meant for few months or few days. But then such was the change. So people were very adamant in terms of response to it. Now we see that everything is settled and the staff is doing it. But then point is, if you have supportive staff, then it becomes easy for you to bring about the entrepreneurial change. So if the staff is ready to move out of their comfort zone and taking, if they wish to take their company's brand and goodwill on, onto some different territory or different horizons, then you can bring about the change. Third driving factor is training and immersion of key staff members in the emerging world by tackling issues like cost pressure, technological change. Exactly, this was what we discussed. Global outline alternative sources of supply. So basically, the training and immersion. Immersion is when you do something with your own heart. So nobody is forcing you; it is by your own wish. You are immersed. You are completely flown into it. So training and immersion of key staff members in emerging world of tackling issues. So if you are a key staff, the important few of the position holders of your organization, if they are ready to tackle such issues, such challenges, then you can bring about the entrepreneurial change in your organization. Last driver, capacity to reduce risk, at the same time transforming the niche opportunity into significant market segment. Capacity to reduce the risk. If you have got the talent and capacity to reduce the risk, the business risk, if you can sense and if you know how to manage and how to tackle these issues, at the same time, if you are capable of transforming the niche opportunity, niche very special, out of this whole universe, if you are concentrating on this tiny segment, usko bolenge hum niche. So transforming this niche opportunity into a significant market segment. uh, there is library called as Pai's Friends Library. Now they are into this business for many years now, or maybe for last 10 or 12. I don't know exactly, but they are into this business for many years. So this was the niche opportunity. Maybe 20 years back, when the internet was into the nascent stage, into the introductory stage, we never thought that library can be something, no? Book library can be something that can also be a business opportunity. So this person or this organization could sense that though it's a very small segment, though there are very few people who are, मतलब बहुत ही die hard fan of reading. So for them, if we use this online platform and if we make ourselves available online, it's a good opportunity. So this way, they understood, the people understood, the entrepreneur, the founder understood that even here lies the opportunity. And though it's a niche segment, but then I can establish myself very well. So if you have got such capacity to understand and work or act accordingly, you can bring about entrepreneurial change. So these are 4 ways of bringing about entrepreneurial change. Here we are completing our 3rd unit. Now the remaining units which we have, uh, these units have got lots of, we can say, the government bodies whose, uh, I mean, we would be discussing the various incentives, the assistance, the concessions, and tax benefits and all of the organizations or the government bodies who are helping the entrepreneurs, who are helping in bringing about entrepreneurship development. So we will be discussing about these organizations. So there is actually nothing much to explain, but then definitely we would be discussing. I would be just telling you कि ये क्या होता है, ये क्या नहीं होता है. You have to sometimes really by heart these things. जैसे if I say that capital investment in case of SSI, small scale unit, it is 7.5 lakh. Whereas capital investment in medium scale units, it would be, let's say, 10 lakhs. So these figures you have to remember. So you have to really like by heart few of the things, and those things we would be starting from tomorrow. So I hope this is what I'm trying to tell you is something you are understanding, and any doubt if you have, just let me know. We are stopping here the today's session. We'll see you tomorrow and have a nice day. Any doubts if you have, just let me know.
No, ma'am.
Alright? Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.